You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, biohacking, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere and anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your host, Dr. Justin Marchegiani, as he answers your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Hey there, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani. Welcome to Beyond Wellness Radio. Feel free and head over to beyondwellnessradio.com where you can access our full podcast transcriptions. While you're there, you can also sign up for our thyroid and female hormone video series. This series goes into the root cause of why your hormones are out of balance. While you're there, you can also schedule a functional medicine consult with Dr. Justin, myself, where we'll dig deeper into the root cause of your health challenges. Feel free and think of sharing this podcast with at least one person. This podcast grows by people sharing it. Sharing is caring. If you can think of one person that can benefit from this information, please feel free and share it. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe on iTunes. You can also click below the video or podcast where you'll see the iTunes review button and leave us a review. You can also sign up for the newsletter at beyondwellnessradio.com where you'll get updates before anyone else. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. And we are live here on YouTube. It's Dr. J in the house. Evan, my man, how are you doing, brother?
Hey, man, happy Monday. We were talking off air about that shooting this morning. So my mom, she worked right next door last night at the hotel, Luxor, which was right next door to that shooting event in Vegas. So I called her this morning and she's safe and sound and she got released. So she's home, hopefully sleeping. I'm sure she's extremely adrenally stressed at this point, but hopefully she's resting and settling down from all that.
Yeah, I have lots of empathy for all the people out there going through that. That must be just incredibly stressful.
It's insane.
All the people that are injured, man, it's just so difficult. So wishing everyone, speedy recovery from that. That just is so difficult. And just, man, everyone's adrenals are revved up from that, right? So let's just go into some stuff here where we can put some information out there about improving everyone's health.
Yes.
And just continue to empower more people. Let's dig in, brother.
Yes. So you and I wanted to chat about low body temperature, which is something that so many people have. I've had it in the winter for a long time. I'm hoping that since I've worked so much on my gut and my adrenals that I don't have it this winter, but cold hands, cold feet, that'd been something that I had mentioned going on with me for several years. I know there's a lot of different causes that you and I wanted to go through. So how should we open this thing? Should we talk about hormones, thyroid? How do you want to lay the groundwork?
When we look at low body temperature is probably one of the best indicators of your metabolism, right? Because the more energy you have, typically the better your temperature is. And so typically you're going to have symptoms of cold temperature, which are going to be cold hands, cold feet, those kind of things. Also fatigue. But now there's also objective ways that we can test your temperature, with the thermometer. Obviously, we can do axillary temperature, which is armpit. 97.8 to 98.2 is Fahrenheit. It's a pretty good range to be in. Or 98.2 to 98.6 orally. And so you can kind of assess your temperature. You can do it in the morning, and then you can also do it in the afternoon as well. Kind of do it just before eating. That gives you a pretty good indication. But if your metabolism's low and your temperature's low, it could be caused by an interplay of different things. We'll go into it. It could be thyroid issues. It could be adrenal issues. It could be gut issues. It could be nutrient issues. It could be mitochondrial issues. So all of these things are potential stressors that could be driving that problem.
I'd say number one, it's probably thyroid issues. Wouldn't you suspect? Because so many people we talk with, they have adrenal issues, but then on top of that, there is a thyroid problem, like maybe elevated reverse T3, where they've got that blank bullet going on, or they've just got a low free T3, or like you and I've chatted about with adrenals, you've got the conversion process that happens where you take the inactive T4 hormone, you convert that to active T3. That conversion process gets messed up if you've got chronic stress. And the chronic stress, as you mentioned, could be gut infections. It could be emotional stress, could be chemical, heavy metals. It could be circadian rhythm stress. If you're working third shift, for example, that could be enough to change this whole cascade, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, Again, all of those things can be intimately connected. The first thing we look at is thyroid, because thyroid hormone has a major effect on our metabolism. And our metabolism is the sum of all chemical reactions in the body. And our metabolism is pH driven, right? So if our pH becomes too alkaline or too acidic, like, blood pH, which exists in a very fine-tuned range, right around 7.35 plus or minus a tenth of a point there. And if that pH shifts up or down, that can affect how all of our enzymes in our body work. So that can affect temperature. I mean, there's things like a diabetic coma, right, where blood sugar can go too low typically. If someone's type 1 dependent and they don't have insulin, then they don't get sugar into their cell, which can create ketoacidosis. And that can really, really drop that pH and that put you into a coma. So our pH is very driven and has a major effect on our metabolism. So totally.
So let's hit on the thyroid piece. Now, autoimmunity is something we talk about so much. Would you say a common symptom of someone with Hashimoto's, for example, could be low body temperature or possibly even fluctuating? Maybe they're low body temperature if they're a bit underperforming, but then couldn't they just bounce right back and get actually hot if they bump into hyperthyroid, if they're in that Hashimoto state and things are still fluctuating?
Yeah, so if you're having Hashimoto's and your immune system's constantly attacking your thyroid hormone can spill up. Because again, every time it's attacked, hormone spills out. Eventually, those follicles run dry and you're not going to quite have that hyper kind of symptom. So in an acute attack, hyper symptoms and maybe increased temperature are common, right? You can have like PVCs, paraventricular contractions. You can have, kind of your kind of heart palpitations. Your heart's kind of beating erratic and hard. Anxiety, night sweats, irritability. These are all hyperthyroid symptoms. You feel warming, right? Feel excessive warmth or temperature. But then in a chronic state, that will eventually lead to a hypothyroid kind of environment where your body temperature gets very low.
Got it. So if someone's had Hashimoto's for quite some time, let's say there's been a pretty significant tissue destruction, you would say someone will not end up being hyper long-term with Hashimoto's. They're probably going to be hypo long-term.
Yeah, I mean, hyper feels very similar. Hyperthyroid Graves feels very similar to a hypothyroid autoimmune attack. The difference is with hyper, typically there's specific antibodies or immunoglobulin compounds that come back. So with Graves, you're seeing TSI immunoglobulins or you're seeing thyroid TSH receptor site antibodies. So that's what's typically common in Graves. And when those things are high, it's accelerating the thyroid hormone to produce excessive amounts of thyroid hormone. So there's like a production stimulation, where with the autoimmune attack from like thyroglobulin antibodies or TPO antibodies, it's more of a spilling of a thyroid hormone out of the thyroid. It's spilling out, where the antibody attack from Graves, it's stimulating the thyroid to produce more. With Hashimoto's, you're not getting the stimulation. You're more or less getting that spilling effect, which eventually, will run dry.
Got it. Okay, so we hit the autoimmune piece. What else would go on thyroid-wise that would be an issue with temperature regulation?
Well, again, there's also certain nutrients that have a major effect on thyroid conversion. So we know things like selenium are super important for thyroid conversion. So someone may have decent thyroid levels from a T4 perspective, but they may not have that activation, right? They may not have that conversion that's so important.
So it could just be a lack of trace nutrients, trace minerals, selenium, zinc, things like that, activators.
So here we are live on Facebook now too with the Low Body Temperature podcast. So getting back onto our common thread, yeah, micronutrients like selenium are going to be important for thyroid conversion. It's the enzyme that converts T4 to T3 inactive thyroid hormone to active thyroid hormone is a 5-deiodinase enzyme. It's a selenium-based enzyme. It's also important with glutathione and detoxification. So yeah, that's totally a important micronutrient that will affect thyroid activation. So when we look at thyroid function, we're looking at, are there blood sugar fluctuations? Are you eating grains or foods that are going to cause that thyroid antibody attack that could cause the hormone to spill out and eventually deplete the hormones? your thyroid follicles carry about 4 months of thyroid hormone. So again, if you have a chronic Hashimoto attack where the thyroid hormone's spilling out faster than you can synthesize and make more, then you're going to definitely get to that depletion state where you're going to go hypo from a temperature standpoint. You're going to go almost hypothermic. That temperature will drop below that 97.8 to 98.2 armpit temperature wise, or 98.2 to 98.6. And I'll put a handout down below to my metabolic temperature handout, so people can actually track their temperatures. And it's basically a graph of 3 different lines. And then the top bracket's where you want your temperature to be through, which ranges 97.8 to 98.6. We want to be checking off daily that your temps are in this bracket, not the bottom or the very bottom.
Got it. Okay, so what else? Should we talk about adrenals next?
The nutrients, right? Vitamin A. We talked about zinc, copper, selenium, magnesium. Very important nutrients for thyroid conversion. Now, if you're eating a whole food diet, you're going to be typically pretty good. If you're having enough hydrochloric acid and enzymes, you're going to be good as well, because we need those type of compounds to be able to ionize the minerals. So it's the diet component. It's making sure we have the ability to break down the foods in our diet that are nutrient dense. Number 3 is making sure our stress response is okay, because stress hormones will affect thyroid conversion. Cortisol being hyper, very high, will affect thyroid T4 to T3 conversion, that inactive to active thyroid hormone. Also, if cortisol is too low from chronic stress. So there's this kind of Goldilocks effect that we see here with thyroid hormone kind of needing to be not too high, but not too low to have optimal conversion. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, it does. Well said. Let me mention about the gut too, because you just hit on the fact that you've got to have absorption. So even if the diet's good, which many people listening to us, they probably already dialed in like a paleo template, but they could still have this symptom. You may want to check for infections, because like Justin and I talk about almost every week at some level, there could be an H. pylori, bacteria, yeast, fungus, something going on in the gut that's stealing your nutrients or preventing you from optimally digesting. And then that issue is compounded if you've been taking any type of anti-acid or acid blocking medication, something simple as Tums, or something more strong like a Prilosec or Zantac.
Yeah. Oh, yep.
So
totally
keep that in mind. If you're looking at your medication list and that includes acid blockers and you have cold body temperature, it's probably because you're not digesting your foods. Therefore, the thyroid's not getting fed the nutrients it needs.
Totally. And also, a lot of medications can affect your mitochondria. Just Google antibiotics and mitochondrial function. You'll find that antibiotics can negatively impact mitochondrial function. And you'll also find that other medications can impact the mitochondria. And the mitochondria is like the little powerhouse of your cell, where it generates a lot of ATP, which is that currency of energy in which your body runs. So that's really important. And also an important nutrient called carnitine really helps that mitochondria utilize fat for energy and generate ATP out of that good fat. You know, it's called beta oxidation, where you're generating energy from fat. And carnitine is an important nutrient primarily made from methionine and lysine. Now, I did a video called Why Vegan and Vegetarian Diets Can Make You Fat. No, don't make you fat, but why they can, meaning it's not 100%, but if you're insulin resistant and you're doing it the wrong way, where you're emphasizing maybe too much carbohydrates, not enough protein, and more gut irritating foods, yeah, it can definitely predispose people that have inflamed guts and who are more on the insulin resistant side to gain weight. And one of the big things is that when you eat certain animal-rich amino acids, there are some plant ones as well. You activate these cells in the brain that are called, hold on one sec. I'm just checking my wall here for my notes, tanocytes. And these tanocytes are receptor sites in the brain, in the third ventricle area of the brain. And there's a direct blood flow between them and the hypothalamus. These tanocytes, one, they sense satiety, but the big thing that senses satiety for them is arginine and lysine, which are really high in animal-based foods. So these amino acids really give that sense of satiation. So that means you're, one, going to have appetite regulation, because when you actually start feeling full, you tend to not need to eat all the crap, right? Yep. So the more you can keep your cravings in check, the more you eat healthier foods, because you got control over your biochemistry. You're not reacting, you're acting based on what you know you need to be healthy. But those amino acids are primarily going to be higher in animal-based foods, especially lysine as well.
Yeah, well said. So in a roundabout way, if you are a vegetarian or a vegan and you've got low body temperature, it could just be something as simple as a carnitine deficiency. I mean, you could probably get a little bit in beans, maybe
Yeah, so a little bit in beans, a little bit in almonds, a little bit in plums, and avocados for sure.
But even then, once we talked, like we talk about all the time, digestion of those foods is probably not very good, and the concentration of those is going to be much less as opposed to like a
Bingo.
grass-fed beef.
Yeah, in my video, I talked about, if you're a smart vegan where you're not emphasizing a lot of the grains, you're doing safer starches, you're getting lots of fats from avocado, olive oil, coconut oil, you're supplementing DHEA in the form of algae, right? And if you're getting B12 supplementation and you're getting a good multi in there and you're getting some protein supplementation in there, maybe from pea or hemp, right? And it's easy for you to process. You may be okay on a vegan vegetarian diet, but it's still less than optimal just because of the fact that you got to go through such extreme lengths to get high quality protein sources without all the carbohydrate, because vegetarian vegan diets typically are packed with 60 to 80% carbohydrates per that 20 to 25% of protein you get.
Yep, well said. So
that's the big concern.
You hit on the mitochondria. I'd say we should take that a bit further and talk about more toxins. You hit on antibiotics and mitochondrial issues there. Makes perfect sense. We work with people all the time where they say, oh, Justin or Evan, as soon as I took a round of antibiotics, all of a sudden things went bad. And it could be temperature issues. It could be sleep problems, could be gut issues, digestive problems. And so also with mitochondrial issues, we've got toxins. So if you're not eating 100% organic, that's an issue because glyphosate and these other pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, insecticides, they all compound with each other. So it's not that one chemical by itself will kill you, but if you get a little bit of glyphosate here from your non-organic berries, you combine that with a little bit of conventional vegetables because you did a salad at a restaurant, combine that with antibiotics that you're getting from meat if it's not labeled no antibiotics, you stack all those upon each other, you've got some bad mitochondrial problems here that you need to fix. And we can measure this.
The enzymes that are needed to help move those gears that kind of crank around that mitochondria Krebs cycle and then flow into the beta oxidation process, you need certain nutrients. You need B vitamins, you need magnesium, you need zinc, you need healthy levels of amino acids. You also don't need all the toxins, the aluminum, the pesticides, the glyphosate. So those things can kind of gunk up the gears of that metabolic machinery. So it's not only what those gears need to keep it lubricated, but what it is we don't need to put in that will prevent those gears from moving. So it's a combination of avoiding certain things, right? And again, the medications are a double-edged sword. I'm not saying don't use them. I'm saying just really make sure they are prescribed specifically for what you need. And it's a last case kind of thing with antibiotics. We really want to go to herbs and botanical nutrients over antibiotics. They may have a time or place, but we want to use it only when we've exhausted other options.
Yeah, well said. And you and I were talking off air. We can quantify a lot of this stuff too. So you're talking about measuring your temperature. We can quantify what's going on in the gut, right? We can test the gut. We can test the thyroid with blood using functional reference ranges and using functional numbers that conventional doctors don't use. They're only going to detect disease. We're going to detect the issues before disease occurs. We're going to look into the gut, so we could test you for infections. We could test the adrenals, look at your free cortisol rhythm. So the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis you hear us talk about, that is a factor in all of this. If your brain is not connecting the signal to the adrenals and adrenals to the thyroid, that whole system gets off in chronic stress. And it's up to us to figure out, when we talk about stress, what's in that bucket? Is it just your job, your bad boss, your relationship, the divorce you're going through? Is it that stuff only, or is it that stuff plus chemicals in the diet, plus nutrient deficiencies, plus infections, plus not having enough quality meat in the diet? You see how these things can all add up.
Totally. And just to kind of look at the thyroid component again, there's dysregulation up top where the TSH is either high, extreme high, or extreme low. Now, it can be extremely low because you're on thyroid hormone and the body needs more thyroid hormone. The body is sensing more thyroid hormone in the brain, but there's less in the actual tissue. So you're keeping the thyroid hormone higher, but that's keeping the TSH low. That's step one. Step low, the TSH may be low because of HPA T axis dysregulation, that hypothalamus pituitary and that adrenal thyroid axis. There's some kind of short circuits happening in there because of the stress, the emotional stress, because of the physical stress, because of the chemical stressors. And we have to address those while we support the nutrients to get this hardwire back on track. We can also have low T4 levels because if T4 is low, we're going to have low T3 over here. So we got to make sure the nutrients for T4 are in there. Like I mentioned before, the vitamin A, the zinc, copper, magnesium, selenium, amino acids, tyrosine, and potentially iodine, as long as we know that there's not an autoimmune attack that's at least active going on. And then number 3 after that would be, let's see how the T4 to T3 conversion is. If T4 is good, how does T3 conversion look? Is it this big drop off? Or also, is there a very high amount of reverse T3 because of that stress? All those can make a big difference. And then one person asked here, James asked, well, is hypothyroid and hyperthyroid, hypo and hyper, kind of the same for treatment? Yes and no. With hyperthyroid from a TSI, thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin, or a TSH receptor antibody attack, we're more concerned about it because it tends to be more chronically high, which can increase the chance of a thyroid storm and potentially a stroke. So we take that very seriously. We refer that patient out to their medical doctor for monitoring, because we want to make sure there's not a stroke going on. But typically the treatment will be, PTU, basically propylthiouracil or methimazole, things to basically block iodine uptake to make thyroid hormone. Or they'll, typically go to a radioactive thyroid kind of ablation, or even a thyroidectomy. I've had patients where we've been able to avoid those because we give nutrients that help modulate the thyroid response and modulate the autoimmune response, like carnitine, like blue flag, like lemon balm, melissa. And there's certain adaptogens that can also help kind of dampen that response. There's some protocols that even show higher amounts of iodine can block that sodium iodine symporter that transfers iodine into the thyroid. So there's a couple of different protocols you can use to help. And of course, all of the diet and lifestyle things are the same, but we take the Graves autoimmune attack a little bit more seriously just because of the repercussions of it not being treated appropriately. What will happen? We really want to sidestep those.
Yep, well said. So get the TPO antibodies checked, get your TG antibodies checked. You talked about the TSI. Now, have you seen where TPO TG would be high at the same time as TSI, where it's going to look like Hashimoto's and Graves at the same time?
You could. I've seen it before. Yeah, it definitely can. So we're going to really get patients on an autoimmune protocol to help lower any autoimmune attack from the food, from the gluten, from the leaky gut. And we'll also work on blood sugar stability, because high and low blood sugar fluctuations have a major effect on the immune system.
Yep.
Now, another person asked here, and the reason why, I'm such a huge fan of how we do our podcast is because it's literally on the go, and we're infusing questions from people on YouTube here right into the conversation. So it's like, remember those books you read when you're like a kid, and then you read it, and then it's like, oh, if you want the character to do this, turn to this page. If you want the character to do this, turn to this page. Like, you can totally change how the book goes. Well, That's kind of how our podcasts are. So interjecting here, Gerald asked, well, what about T3? How does T3 work? Well, number one, T3 can just help support low T3 levels. And if there's some kind of conversion issue, that can kind of buy us time to fix the conversion aspect, number one. Number two, giving that T3 in the Wilson protocol, that can have some effect on clearing out the receptor sites, so that now the T3 works better and binds better in the future. You can do that by starting low and then tapering up, holding it, and then tapering it back down. In the Wilson protocol, Dr. Dennis Wilson does that with time-release T3, but we do it with glandulars, and that can still be helpful as well. We're using that as a way of clearing out the receptor site, but we're also not, banking that that's going to be the only issue. We're also banking that there's other things that we're going to be fixing that will allow it to be a long-term solution, right?
Got it. So you're saying the thyroid glandulars can be used for a low T3 situation. That's the fix that's going to get you better enough to keep moving the needle in other departments.
Correct. Like in my line, we have thyroid balance, which is a really good glandular nutrient thyroid support from a glandular perspective. And then we have thyroid replete, which is nutrients for the conversion. So there's some herbs that help with conversion, like Coleus forskill and ginseng. And then we have the nutrients for conversion that I mentioned, the vitamin A, magnesium, copper, zinc, selenium, all of those, and then tyrosine. So we want to make sure all those are in there. So we hit it from all angles. I mean, if we knew exactly what that missing nutrient or component was, we could hit it more practically, but it's too difficult to do that. Right. You're better off using multiple methods to hit it. That way the patient can get better faster.
Agreed. And you mentioned the adaptogens, so I'm so glad you did. We use those all the time. I take them every day in some shape or form, whether it's ashwagandha, holy basil, shajandra. There's so many options. And people ask, well, can I just take a bunch of adaptogens and fix myself? It doesn't work like that. You just want to use them as one piece of your toolbox. You still want to be getting to the root cause, though. Adaptogens are life-changing, but if there's root causes, you could take all the adaptogens in the world and it won't fix you.
I'm going to take my ashwagandha right now for a
Perfect.
little bit of immune support. But I mean, like, yeah, if you're doing okay and you're like, hey, Dr. J and Evan talked about some ashwagandha and some of these nutrients, I want to try it out. Fine, go ahead. But if you're actively having issues that are, the symptoms that we mentioned here, whether it's on the hyper or hypo side, you really want to get someone on board to help guide you, because it's never just one magic bullet. It's a whole bunch of things that we're doing together. And the more chronic it is, the more you have that momentum working against you. We got to overcome that inertia to stop that snowball effect and start pushing it back uphill. So yeah, if you're in pretty good shape, fine, just try some of these things. But if you're in not so good shape and you want to reach out, for sure.
Yep, cool. Well, we got time for one more question. James said it's not a thyroid question. He's taking an antibiotic for root canal this week. Will this affect the results of organic acids test and stool test if he collects the samples while antibiotics are still in the system?
I mean, if we're doing some of the genetic-based testing, it shouldn't have an effect on it. If we're doing a stool antigen-based testing, then it would.
Right.
So you should be okay. If like we're doing the GI map, which is, what my go-to is, it should be okay according to the lab. I try to avoid doing it. So I would say in a perfect world, if it's not going to delay your treatment, I would say get through the antibiotics, get like a day or two to let it wash out and then do it. Yeah. But if timing doesn't work out, just do it, get it done.
I would also look up Mercola root canals and read about those. I mean, maybe you're too far down the rabbit hole and you can't avoid the root canal, but there are some other options you may have available. If you've got a good biological dentist, maybe they'll sit down with you and say, okay, root canal's option A, but maybe there's an option B, C that you could look at too. Because we've had a lot of people that come to us with infected root canals, and maybe Jessica can speak on this a bit, but I've seen it as a big needle mover for people.
Yeah, there's a book by Rami Nagel that talks all about root canals. Highly recommend you take a look at it. Fat-soluble nutrients, vitamin A, vitamin K are very helpful. Oil pulling to kind of help extract any toxins that may be in there. And you don't want a root canal. You want to get the tooth pulled out. You want to get an implant put in using biologically appropriate material. You don't want the gangrenous tissue still in the system without the blood flow and the immune response to be able to get it. It's just a harboring place for a whole bunch of bacteria and viruses to hang out.
Right. Yeah. Well said. So James, look into that. Maybe it's not too late. Hopefully you've got some other options you can pursue. That'd be much, much safer and much healthier in the long term. That way you don't have a hidden dental infection. There's a guy named Simon Yu that you and I should reach out and interview. He's over in St. Louis. He talks a lot about hidden dental infections. I think that'd be a good show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%. So a couple things we want to talk about. Oh, also carbohydrate, I think is important. Again, my bias is towards a lower carbohydrate template, paleo template. And again, I hate the word diet because it assumes something is temporary and it assumes that it is fixed. Where a template gives us flexibility and modification. It may change day to day and it may change meal to meal. I tend to be very lower carbohydrate my first 2 meals of the day. And then after that, I may increase some carbohydrate at night, that's starchy based. So I'm very strict during the day. It's high quality fats. It's 60 to 70% fats. The only carbohydrates are vegetables and then good proteins. And then I go higher at night. On the carbohydrate side, maybe a little bit of sweet potatoes and some butter and cinnamon, or maybe I have some dark chocolate, or I have a couple more berries than I normally would. So there's that component. So I always go lower carbohydrate to start because so many people are insulin resistant just because of the fact that we eat too much carbohydrate and we're inflamed. So I always go lower carbohydrate to start. And then typically patients will do better and will feel better because insulin resistance can affect T4 to T3 thyroid conversion, which can cause lower temperature. Now, on the double-edged side of the fence, if people go too low insulin, they may also get poor thyroid conversion as well. So just like I mentioned, cortisol has a major effect on thyroid conversion. Well, guess what? Insulin has a major effect on thyroid conversion. Type 1 diabetics, guess what? With low insulin levels, because of the autoimmune attack to their beta cells of the pancreas, they have low body temperature. So if you go too low carbohydrate, and this is for certain individuals, not everyone. I know people are going to be like, but I'm low carbohydrate and I felt great and it reversed my low temperature. I get it. Again, there are exceptions to every rule. There are tall Chinese people that play basketball, even though they're more shorter in the population. There are exceptions to everything, okay? We got to get that in. So yes, there are some people that a low carbohydrate diet, the majority, I would say, would help, partly because our consumption of refined carbohydrate and sugar is higher. But there are some people, when they're chronically low, they may increase that carbohydrate just a bit, and that ups the insulin a little bit, which then helps that thyroid conversion. And they're like, dude, my hair is starting to grow back better, my temperature's better, my energy's better. Boom. You at least now figured it out for you. So exceptions to every rule, figure it out. And if you feel great going low carb, great, keep it there, hang out. But if you start getting some of those hypo temperature symptoms, then we'll just ratchet it up a little bit. And I primarily ratchet it up starting at night. And I still get the benefit of keeping it lower carb during the day.
Well said. I mean, that's me in a nutshell. I went very, very, very low carb. Ketogenic, I guarantee. I was probably ketogenic most of the time, and then I started to get cold, and so I added in some starch with dinner, and all of a sudden my body temperature is perfect now. I feel good. So if I go too low carb again, it may come back, or if there's a huge piece of stress on my plate, the low body temperature may come back. But for now, I've been able to reverse this and been able to clear out all the infections with your help in terms of protocols a couple years ago, getting rid of all my gut bugs, plus supporting adrenals, getting the diet dialed in, getting my sleep improved, blacking out my room. All of those things are still important. So I hope this has been helpful. I got to run. You've got to run too. Or are there any last questions that we could answer? I closed out the chat window.
And just one thing I wanted to say is it's not about being higher carb or lower carb. Have a foundational template which you go back to, and then you can customize it. And then if you increase carbs, you can still get some of the benefits by having that first 20 hours of your meals relatively lower carb, higher fat, moderate protein. And then those last 4 hours, you pop it up a little bit. So you can still get some of those benefits. If you're like, oh, I feel better with higher carbs, you can still get the benefits of the first 20 hours of your day kind of in that ketogenic state, and then pop up the carbohydrates later. So it's not an either or thing. We can kind of straddle the fence, but we want to customize it. I don't give a crap if low carb is your missing link, and being low carb all the time helps you. That's what we're going to do. If being low carb and a little more high carbohydrate helps you out, I don't care. I'm all about the results and not about what tool I have to use to get the job done.
Yep, well said. For me, that looks like the breakfast, like a pastured sausage, maybe a handful of macadamias, maybe a handful of organic blueberries. Lunch, probably do some leftover steak and veggies, like a big thing of broccoli with some butter. Dinner, that's when I may do some type of pastured meat, a little bit of some veggies, and then a starch. So it could be a medium-sized baked sweet potato, butter, cinnamon. That's all it takes, and I feel good. So just to kind of give people an idea, what does that look like? That's what it looks like.
Totally. That's great. And a couple questions here. Stephanie talks about menopausal women with low estrogen and low estradiol vaginal tablets. Well, this is interesting because typically low estrogen can cause hot flashes. And why does that cause hot flashes? Because typically the FSH and the LH starts to rise in the pituitary, which is that signaling hormone trying to yell to the ovaries to make more progesterone and estrogen. So when LH and FSH, primarily FSH, goes high, that can create some vasodilation effects and create the hot flashes. So by giving a little bit of female hormone support, we can drop down that FSH, and we can also modulate the receptor sites with some herbs as well to help with the hot flashes, whether we use maca or whether we use dong quai or black cohosh or raspberry root or shepherd's purse. There's different nutrients or herbs we can do to help modulate that. So again, you could still have low thyroid issues, but have menopausal issues because of the low estrogens, which could drive the hot flashes up. So it's kind of a conundrum. The hot flashes may overshadow this low thyroid thing over here. So as we get the female hormones fixed, you may notice the low thyroid comes back later on because it's just a secondary issue, and the primary issue is the menopause. Once that's ruled out, now this one comes to the surface.
Got it. Well said. We should probably do a whole show just on low estrogen if we haven't.
I think that'd be great. I mean, I see estrogen dominance is a big problem where estrogen,
Right.
The ratio of estrogen is higher than progesterone, right? So progesterone should be like this 25-1, 25 times more than estrogen. But if that ratio starts to creep up or estrogen gets a little higher, that's estrogen dominance. The problem is there's a lot of people, though, where that ratio, they're estrogen dominant, progesterone's low, but estrogen's also low. So they get this estrogen dominant, but also low estrogen symptoms at the same time. So it's kind of this conundrum, this like little tug of war that's happening there.
Wow. Put it on the to-do list. That sounds like it's going to be a fun one for us to dive into more. And I've probably got some stuff to learn from you on that topic as well.
I think it's great. Well, any last questions, comments, or concerns, Evan?
No, I think this has been good. People, you got to get the testing run, because if you don't test, you've guessed. So if you're trying to figure this out on your own, even if you're not working with Justin or myself, then get the test run. Find a functional medicine practitioner that can take care of you. We are accepting new clients. So if you do need help, feel free to reach out. justinhealth.com, evanbrand.com. We run these labs on all of our clients because it's the foundation. We've got to have the data, got to have the puzzle pieces on the table. Otherwise, you can't move the needle. You could throw a bunch of random stuff at you, might help, can't hurt, but we want to get you better. And there's a systemic process that we do step by step by step to take you through this. So we're happy to help. Reach out if you've got questions, and thanks for tuning in.
Oh, one last thing, man. I forgot to add. This is so important. Low calories. Just not eating enough calories will cause low body temperature. It's shown to cause low levels of T3. Now, this is important because if your diet's 25% crapola, and let's say you're eating 2,000 calories a day, and then we switch you over to a autoimmune kind of paleo template, but you're only able to switch over 75% of your diet because you don't have enough. You can't replace all the crap that you were eating with the good stuff. Right? Because if you're eating a whole bunch of crappy carbohydrates and stuff, and then you replace it with a whole bunch of really good vegetables or lower sugar foods, well, guess what? You probably didn't replace the calorie amount either. So now you got this 25% calorie deficient. So now instead of having 2,000 calories, right? Now you're having 1,500 calories, and maybe metabolically you need 2,000 calories. Now you're 500 calories in the hole, which means you're 500 calories deficient of various nutrients. So now your metabolism goes low because it has less fuel. That's important. I see it a lot. So you got to work with someone that really can make sure you're exchanging the foods and you're getting enough calories as well, because calories equal nutrition if you're eating real foods.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's such a simple but common issue. If you're going AIP, you're going paleo, you're eating real foods, you could have an entire plate full of broccoli and it may only be 50 calories. So
exactly.
Yeah, dude, great job. Way to kill it.
And of course, the infections, like you mentioned, can really suck down the energy. Of course, acute infections, you're causing a fever, right? Because the immune system is trying to upregulate itself because a lot of the bacteria and crap, they're mesophilic. They thrive at a medium temperature. So when you go a little bit higher, you can actually kill them off with a higher temperature. But these chronic bugs can really deplete the energy of the body and create this kind of chronic lower temperature as well. For sure.
Yeah. And I went to low calorie for a period of time, not intentionally, not on purpose. It just happened. I was eating meats, I was eating veggies, and I tracked my calories for a few days, and I was eating in my activity level and all that. I was probably 400 to 600 calories deficient. So just added in an extra tablespoon of butter here and there, extra half of an avocado here and there, handful of nuts and seeds, and I was right back up to where I needed to be.
Like here's the seesaw, right? So if like carbohydrates is here, if carbs go lower, this is fat over here. The fats have to go up.
Yep.
The difference is if you keep the fats here, if you keep the fats on this side low and drop the carbohydrates, that's where the problem happens. The fats also have to go up.
I like that.
That's the biggest issue. Proteins typically stay in the middle. Typically, proteins only go up if you're doing a whole bunch of protein powders because proteins and fats are intimately connected. So if you're eating real whole foods, it's hard to get just proteins in whole foods unless you're doing maybe like venison or rabbit or like boneless, skinless chicken breast. But if you're eating full fat foods, you're going to get fat. And then if you're adding fat to your vegetables, you're going to get extra fat without the protein there as well. So keep that in the back of your head.
Perfect. Great
Hey man,
job.
anyone listening here, give us comments below. Give us some shares. Give us some likes. We want to hear your thoughts in the comments section. If you're listening to us on iTunes, that's great. Click below and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can see Evan and I's mugs going back and forth and our little combos here. And then you can give us some comments below here on YouTube. We'd love to see the feedback. And Evan, hey man, you have a great day. We'll talk soon.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com and click the questions button. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, click below to review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to BeyondWellnessRadio.com.